What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. So I know over the last couple of days we've uploaded a lot of videos for Borsalino, and yeah, he's been a lot of fun to use, but I think now we should probably give a little bit of love to Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji. So that's what we're going to do today. I have some clips recorded already for using them in Pirate Rumble, so before we jump into that, I do want to kind of discuss like exactly what they're doing, because they're a bit of an odd unit. Like, while they have a lot of damage, they also kind of provide some really interesting support kind of abilities. So we'll go through it real quick. Of course, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, they count as both, you know, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji in the team. So you can't use Memory of Straw Hat Sanji with this character, which is a massive downside, because if you were capable of doing that, you could build some pretty crazy teams. But either way, this character's Rumble ability gives Psy characters 8 attack, 8 defense. That's already very good. On top of the fact that he can revive twice at 50% HP. And then the added effect for tags, Straw Hat characters will receive level 3 special CT increase, which of course does include himself. So being able to give 8 attack, 8 defense, level 3 CT, and then also reviving twice, I mean, it's a pretty good ability right there. No real complaints from me. Now, the special ability is quite high at 35 CT, so you're not going to see it very often, but when it launches, it does kind of go crazy. So the effect is 5,000 damage in a large range, and then your side teammates get 5 attack and 5 defense for 30 seconds, as well as targeting 2 enemies with high HP for 1.6 damage that goes through defense, on top of the fact that they give Straw Hat tag characters, not including themselves, a 30% special CT reduction. So the reason why this character does have that high CT is to really benefit off of the fact that he is going to give Straw Hats that 30% reduction, meaning typically what would happen is your other Straw Hats would launch, their specials will go, because this character's CT is so high, by the time you get to Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, your other Straw Hats have launched, he's going to charge your other Straw Hats back, and then you can kind of get a cycle going. So this character, he does do a lot of damage, you know, that fixed damage is pretty decent, and then the 1.6 damage, it's not a high number, but with the more investments you get into this guy, the higher the damage is going to scale. So 1.6 damage is pretty decent. I actually have used a few level limit break wanted posters to level him up a little bit, and also he's going to be very good in Grand Party. He has one of the best Grand Party burst skills in the game, scaling up to 2.3 times damage. So of course, the higher your damage on your character, the more damage you're going to do in Rumble, obviously. So overall, I think that he's a very interesting character, but the fact that he is kind of Straw Hat focused means that if you don't have those key Straw Hat characters on your team, you're just losing out on a ton of benefits. Not saying you don't have to build, you know, with the full Straw Hats, you can build with other characters for sure, but, you know, if you have, like, the Legend Nami that debuted in this celebration, the 11th anniversary Nami, that character is going to be massive alongside the Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, but unfortunately don't have her yet, so you'll see a bunch of videos from me, or a bunch of clips from me, using them without that Nami in mind. However, if I did end up pulling that Nami eventually, she definitely would make it onto the team, as she would provide some amazing support for the squad. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into some clips using them in Rumble. So jumping into our first clip is going to be up against an opposing shooter team. Now, this initial team that you're seeing here that we have on my side, the side team, this is not the final team that I end up going with. This was kind of like my initial build that I decided to try things out with. We end up shifting things quite a fair bit once we get to the second half of the video, but this is what I was going for. Now, look, if you ended up getting your hands on the 11th anniversary Nami, I would be definitely using her over Nico Robin in this scenario. The main reason why we're using Robin is because her abilities buff Psy units, which is obviously a positive, and she has a relatively low CT, and her special, it doesn't really do that much, but it does provide 3 enemies hit with a 50% health cut. And having that is quite nice, honestly. And then having her Rumble ability also give CT increase to our squad is actually pretty good. So obviously, if you have the 11th anniversary Nami, that character not only providing decent damage, but also being able to debuff the enemies, reversing their specials, lowering their defense, like that ability is just way too good not to pass up. So for sure, you would definitely be running that. And especially if you do get the opportunity to launch your special of Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, to then charge your special of Robin, or charge your special of that Nami, being able to get those specials back ASAP to launch their specials again is definitely going to be a huge asset as to why Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji may be a very good character to use in the future. But at the end of the day, I really don't know at this point whether this character is going to be an optimal unit for Psy, because they're so focused around using Straw Hats, or specifically if you want to use like 11th anniversary Nami and Rumble, you probably want to use Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji with them. But at that point, you're kind of restricted in terms of your other Sugofest exclusive choices on your squad, and there's only really a couple units that are really going to slide quite well with these units. Moving on to our secondary clip here, which is going to be against a Free Spirit team, and this is a pretty good looking Free Spirit team. I'm not too sure on the investments of this squad, but hypothetically, if they did have high investments, this team would be absurdly scary here. So in terms of the unit choices on my side as well, I'm using the 10th anniversary Shanks because his ability does provide some pretty decent buffs across the board, and the fact that we have a full team of units that are like either Cerebral or Powerhouse, Shooter, Slasher, whatever it is. Shanks buffs like a lot of random units, so he buffs Slasher and Cerebral because those are his classes, but he also buffs Powerhouse as well, and I think Driven, giving some further CT charge, which is nice, and also giving them a shield to provide some extra defense, because the side team, it used to be one of the best teams in the game, but with the amount of power creep that some of the other teams have received, side definitely fell by the wayside, and they haven't really received a ton of support recently. I would say the only couple of characters over the past maybe year that have been kind of like meta-defining for the side team have been characters such as Memories of Straw Hat Sanji, or characters like Galaxy Impact Garp, absolutely phenomenal characters that see a ton of play. But this is the last clip that you guys are going to see of this specific team. We change things up once we get to the next two clips, and the next team is definitely a far superior team that I would prefer to use over this one right here. But of course, Wano Law I feel like is kind of a mainstay on most of the side teams right now because of the ability to give just insane special CT increase to your squad. But not only that, if you happen to come up against any Driven or Powerhouse characters, being able to nerf their special CT is just a massive advantage, considering there's a lot of good Driven and Powerhouse characters in Pirate Rumble. I mean, the ones that come to mind straight away, you've got S-Hawk, you've got versus Blackbeard, a lot of the Dex team will be running Powerhouse now, a lot of int characters, obviously. Even the Strength team has a lot of Powerhouse characters as well. Characters like the Anniversary Luffy, Legend Kuma. Like, there's a ton of characters that Law can just, you know, not really neuter, like, per se. Like, he does quell them quite a fair bit, but it doesn't like overly give you like a massive advantage, but it is just a nice piece that you want to have on your squad. Debuff those characters you come up against, give you a nice little buff against those characters as well. And then we have S-Bear, of course. S-Bear is a phenomenal choice. I don't have any investments into my S-Bear. I have been considering it, giving him a few posters to maybe get his damage numbers up. He's definitely a nice character to have on the front line, but even on the bench, coming in late game can be nice as well, because remember that if you kill all of your opponent's characters, and they've got a character that has been forced out, it does still give you the win. So he could also be a really good endgame type of character that can help you sweep and get that late game win. So I'll leave you guys with the rest of this clip, and then we'll move on to our next opponent where we change up our team slightly, and I think is a much better team comp than what you're seeing right here. So moving on to our next one, this is where we have a slight shift in team mentality here. We're going up against two different opponents. This clip is going to be against challenge difficulty Avalo Pizarro. We have the challenge difficulty Edward Weevil coming up next, and this team here I much prefer. So the way that this is working is we're using some of the new rare recruits that came out during the 11th anniversary. We're using the new rare recruit Frankie. This character is insanely good for a generic rare recruit character. It's actually kind of funny because a lot of normal rare recruits that have come out over the past couple of years just don't have rumble abilities, but for this celebration they opted to give these Egghead Straw Hats some rumble abilities, and I think it's a great thing that they did that, because with the way that the whole team works is you want to try and use characters that have the Straw Hat tag to make Luffy Zoro Sanji and the new Nami work properly. So by giving these characters actually decent abilities, it actually makes the team kind of work. So Frankie's an interesting character. He's kind of like a really good defensively focused unit. He does counter, I think it's counter, and he also provides the target status. And the cool thing about Frankie is that he introduces a new mechanic into Pirate Rumble, where when he launches his special ability, for 20 seconds, your team has a 50% chance to evade fixed damage. So it's a really unique ability that he has, gives you a little bit like another layer of defense to your squad. Like, it's not going to make a massive difference, but you know, sometimes you may be able to dodge some attacks that you would normally die from, right? It's a pretty cool ability. And then on top of that, we're using Robin once again, because in order for the Frankie and the Chopper to get their abilities to activate, you do need 4 Straw Hats on the team, and especially if you do end up using Nami. Again, if you pull Nami, you would want to use Nami over the Nico Robin in this case. But again, Robin is a pretty decent unit because she does have special CT increase, which is quite good. And then Galaxy Impact Garb is making an appearance. Now, if you guys would have seen the previous team, the team before this, we kind of lacked a little bit of damage output because, yeah, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, when they come in, they do a ton of damage. We all know that. But they definitely needed like another heavy hitter that was able to, you know, sweep and get some knockouts. And Galaxy Impact Garb is one of those units. Sometimes you can get lucky where he launches his special and then he can die. And when Garb dies, he immediately goes to the top of the order, uses his special ability, and then he goes ahead and dies. So being able to like double launch his special can just net you massive dubs. And then of course on the bench we've got the Chopper Rare Recruit, who's a decent unit overall, and then we've got Esper, we have Rebecca Toy Soldier. Honestly, a pretty solid squad, gets the job done. I don't know if it's the best looking side team out there. If you have the Nami, it would definitely be up there for sure, but it gets the job done against the challenge difficulty content. And then the final clip of this video is going to be against the Edward Weevil challenge difficulty. Oh, this is actually the master difficulty. My bad. I thought it was the challenge one. Either way, we still go ahead and get it done. I am a little bit scared of this team though. You know, Edward Weevil, he can do a ton of damage. You got Cruzan, who can apply that special bind status, which just absolutely sucks. But the good thing about like our matchup here, not only against Avali Pizarro previously, but also against Edward Weevil, is the fact that there are lots of driven and or powerhouse units on the opposing side of the team, which allows Law to shine even greater. The fact that he can nerf their special CT increase, especially against Quick, because they typically have quite a lot of special CT increase on this side of the field. And then obviously still giving us our main buffs. You see Cruzan there coming in, special binding Law and Luffy Zoro Sanji. It is a little annoying that Law doesn't have the ability to evade special bind in Rumble, because his ability is like kind of like a utility focused effect where he can remove some debuffs. And special bind, it would be a really nice thing to remove because there aren't a lot of characters on this squad that actually resist that. So yeah, a little bit of a downside there. But obviously we're looking a little scary at the start here. We take quite a lot of damage, but you know, Quick, that's the way that they go. They launch their specials very fast, very early. But being able to withstand that damage from Quick and then go ahead and go on the offense with Garb, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and then obviously Luffy, Zoro, Sanji being able to charge the Robin special to get that to go again, to further health cut those characters, especially the ones that come in off the bench, being able to health cut them and then go ahead and use characters like Esper to sweep goes so well. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts and opinions about Luffy Zoro Sanji down below in the comment section. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.